Good evening, my little creatures of the night. Mr. Wendigo back again, and boy, have I got a tale that'll leave you drowning in terror tonight. Let's see what the deep has whispered to me this time. Ah yes, here we are. The North Atlantic, 300 kilometers off the coast of Newfoundland, where the continental shelf drops into absolute nothing and the water gets so cold, so dark, so crushing, that humans were never meant to go there. Now, the old sailors understand something about the deep places. They know better than to speak of what lives in the trenches. What waits in the lightless zones where the pressure would crush a submarine like a beer can. They have rules about staring too long into black water, about listening too closely when the ocean goes quiet. Because sometimes the quiet means something is listening back. Mason Redwood has spent 20 years as a commercial diver on oil platforms. He's worked the North Sea, the Gulf of Mexico, the freezing waters off Newfoundland. He knows the ocean, knows its moods, knows which sounds are normal and which ones should never exist at all. But tonight, 300 meters down in water so cold it burns, Mason and his dive team are about to hear something new. Something that's been sleeping for a very, very long time. Something that remembers humanity from before we had a name for ourselves. And it's waking up. This is your late night creature feature. When the ocean goes quiet, it's because something's listening. Before we begin, I'm curious, where are you listening from tonight? Alone in your room, driving through empty roads, staring out at water you'll never look at the same way again? Drop a comment and let me know. I like knowing who's out there in the dark with me. Now then, let's talk about what lives in the deep. Fathoms. Chapter 1. The Broken Line. My name is Mason Redwood, senior diver and subsea tech on contract rotation aboard the Hibernia platform, 300 kilometers off the coast of Newfoundland. I've been doing this work for 20 years. Started young, got certified younger, and somewhere along the way the ocean became less of a workplace and more of a second home. That's what I used to say, anyway. Now I'm not sure the ocean was ever home. I think maybe it just let me visit, let all of us visit, and we mistook tolerance for welcome. But I'm getting ahead of myself. The night everything changed started with a broken subsea power cable and 3 divers suiting up for what should have been a routine repair job. 90 minutes, tops. Swim down, assess the damage, patch what we could, flag the rest for the day crew. Simple. Except nothing about that dive was simple. And by the time we surfaced, one of us would never dive again. One of us would forget everything that mattered, and one of us would spend the rest of his life wondering if he'd lost his mind. That last one's me. Wind battered the steel frame of the platform as we gathered in the dive prep bay. November in the North Atlantic isn't a season, it's a punishment. The whole rig swayed under 40-knot gusts, and I could hear waves slamming the support pylons like battering rams 200 feet below. Jason Tierney pulled his dry suit over his shoulders, face already flushed from the heat, built like a linebacker, bald by choice, loud by nature. We'd worked together for 6 years. He had a daughter back in Corner Brook. She was 7, wanted to be a marine biologist. He grinned at me, that familiar gallows humor already warming up. Feels like a good night to die horribly in a freezing black void. I checked the straps on my bailout cylinder. You say that before every dive. It's called coping, Mason. You should try it sometime instead of just staring at the water like it owes you money. Mika Alvarez looked up from her wrist slate, helmet tucked under one arm. 28 years old, youngest diver on the team, sharpest eyes I'd ever worked with. She had a kid brother back in Halifax who she talked to every Sunday without fail. Sent him half her paycheck. Didn't talk about their parents. I figured there was a reason for that. She was quiet tonight, more than usual. Something wrong? I asked. She shook her head, but there was a tension in her shoulders that didn't match the gesture. Ocean feels weird, that's all. Jason snorted. Weird how? Wet? Cold? Full of things that want to eat us? Quiet, she said. Too quiet. She wasn't wrong. I'd noticed it too. The usual ambient noise of the platform, the creaking and groaning and distant machinery hum. It all felt muffled, distant, like the world had stuffed cotton in its ears. Samantha Crenshaw walked in before I could say anything. Dive supervisor, 15 years on rigs, face like she'd seen everything twice and wasn't impressed either time. She'd been doing this job longer than most of us had been alive. Gray streaked through her dark hair, and she had that particular kind of tire that caffeine doesn't touch. She tapped the console, and a blue schematic flickered onto the screen. The cable stretched across it like a glowing spine, with one section pulsing yellow. Damage markers here, she said, pointing. 85 meters down. Telemetry suggests external force, not electrical failure. Something tore the casing. Jason leaned forward. Tore? Like with what? Hands? Teeth? A rogue submarine? Boat strike at 85 meters? Samantha's eyebrow went up. Unless Newfoundland developed underwater tugboats. No. Nobody laughed. Visibility's going to be rough. She continued. Thermocline's unstable. You'll be using line-of-sight lights only. Stick together. Maintain tether spacing. Standard procedure. She paused, just for a second, but I saw something flicker across her face, something she didn't want to say. And if you hear anything unusual, report it immediately. Jason tilted his head. Unusual like what? Samantha pressed her lips together. We've been picking up interference on the hydrophones. Bursts of sound. Could be ice calving. Could be whale song bouncing off the thermocline. Could be storm pressure doing weird things to the equipment. Could be. But I'd heard those recordings earlier that day. I'd been in the monitoring room when the tech played them back, trying to figure out what had tripped the sensors. It hadn't sounded like ice. It hadn't sounded like whales. It had sounded like someone calling from underwater, muffled, warped, almost human. A name, maybe, or a word in a language that didn't exist anymore. I kept that to myself. The elevator cage lowered us toward the dive stage. Platform legs groaned somewhere above, and the ocean sprayed upward in freezing mist that stung exposed skin like needles. The basket creaked under our combined weight as we stepped aboard. Comms check. Samantha's voice crackled in our helmets. Redwood, good. Tierney, good. A pause. Alvarez, good. But Mika's voice sounded thin, distant, like she was already somewhere else. The winch arm swung us over open water. I looked down through the grating beneath my feet and saw nothing but churning black. Surface lights from the platform glinted off wave crests that looked like the ridged backs of something enormous rolling beneath us. The basket dropped. 10 meters, 20, 40. Sunlight vanished like someone had flipped a switch. By 60 meters, the world outside our helmet lights was absolute blackness, the kind of dark that feels solid, the kind that presses against your eyes until you're not sure if they're open or closed. Stage approaching target depth, Samantha said. Release when ready. We unclipped from the basket and drifted out into the void, 3 divers connected by umbilicals, moving slow and careful through water so cold it made my teeth ache even through the suit. 2 degrees Celsius, maybe less. The kind of cold that doesn't just chill you, it claims you, makes you property of the ocean, one frozen inch at a time. Damn, Jason hissed, breath fogging his faceplate. Water's piss tonight. We swam toward the cable, 3 helmet lights cutting thin channels through suspended particulate, bubbles streaming up behind us like silver ghosts. Everything looked normal. For about 12 minutes. Mika was the first to hear it. Did you guys catch that? Jason and I both stopped mid-kick, legs going still, heads turning. Catch what? I asked. She didn't answer right away. I could hear her breathing through comms, quick, shallow. I thought I heard. Someone said my name. We scanned the darkness around us. Nothing moved. Nothing showed on the faint glow of my wrist display, just empty water and drifting silt. Probably current noise, Jason said. Acoustic weirdness. Happens all the time down here. He was right. Sound travels strange at depth. Pressure does things to it. Bends it. Stretches it. Makes whale calls sound like screams and distant machinery sound like breathing. But his voice didn't sound convinced. We kept swimming. 2 minutes later, I heard it too. Faint. So faint I almost convinced myself it wasn't real. A shape of sound drifting through the water like smoke. Half a syllable. Dragged through pressure and distance. Stretched thin. Mika stopped moving, body rigid in the water. "You heard it," she whispered. "Not a question." "Hydrophones are showing nothing," Samantha's voice crackled in our ears. "No audio signatures. Ambient noise is baseline. Comms are clean on my end. But we'd heard it. 3 trained divers who didn't hallucinate underwater. 3 people who knew the difference between imagination and reality at depth. I logged it in my head and kept moving. The cable came into view like a massive black spine emerging from the darkness. Our lights played across its surface, and I felt my stomach drop. The damage wasn't wear, wasn't age, wasn't current erosion. The reinforced casing had been shredded. Fiber optic strands hung in spiraled ribbons, steel braiding frayed out like torn muscle. The whole section looked like something had grabbed it and squeezed until the metal screamed. "Jesus Christ," Jason breathed. "That's not natural." He ran a gloved hand across the damaged section, and I watched his fingers trace the gouges in the casing. "What made those marks?" Mika asked quietly. I aimed my light along the length of the breach. The more I looked, the worse it got. Multiple contact points, pressure ridges, curved indentations that followed a pattern I didn't want to recognize. Something had wrapped around this cable, something with limbs or tentacles, something strong enough to crush reinforced steel at 85 meters down. Something big. "We start the patch," I said, keeping my voice steady. "Jason, prep the first clamp. Mika, stand watch. We do this fast and clean." We got to work. Securing the first stabilization bracket didn't take long. I'd done this procedure dozens of times. Muscle memory kicked in, hands moving while my brain tried very hard not to think about what could cause damage like that. 20 minutes in, Mika spoke again. Movement, 10 meters to the right. Jason and I snapped our lights toward where she was pointing. Nothing. Just black water swallowing our beams a few meters out. Then, something shifted in the darkness. A silhouette, moving through the water just at the edge of visibility. Tall, thin, limbs too long for the body they were attached to. Only visible for half a second before it slipped back into the black. "Mason." Jason's voice was barely a whisper. "Tell me you saw that." "I saw something," I said carefully, "but I don't know what. That wasn't a fish. That wasn't a whale. That wasn't anything." Samantha's voice cut in, sharp and fast. "Divers, I'm getting 0 returns on sonar. Surface instruments show nothing in your vicinity. Repeat, nothing. No life signatures. No objects. No movement." "But we saw it," Mika insisted. "Right there. Right in front of us." Her breathing had gone ragged. She was trying to hide it, but I could hear the fear creeping in at the edges. "Stay on task," Samantha ordered. "Finish the patch. Return to stage. Now." We worked faster. But the darkness felt different now. Heavier, like something was watching us from inside it. Like we'd crossed some invisible line and the ocean had noticed. As we locked the final clamp, the water around us vibrated. A sound rolled through the deep, low, resonant, so deep I felt it in my ribs before I heard it with my ears. Not mechanical, not geological, organic. A sound like a foghorn made of flesh, like something massive exhaling in the dark. Mika spun around, light swinging wild. "It's behind us." Nothing. Just darkness eating itself. All divers return, Samantha barked. Abort dive. Repeat. Abort and return. Now. We swam back faster than protocol allowed. I could hear my own heartbeat pounding in my helmet, feel adrenaline turning my blood electric. Nobody spoke. The dive stage materialized out of the gloom like salvation made of metal. We clipped in one by one, hands shaking with more than just cold. Stage secured, I managed. Winch lifting, Samantha replied. The basket lurched upward. Black water fell away beneath us. I made the mistake of looking down. Something moved in the depths, far below, a pale glow that wasn't natural, wasn't bioluminescence, wasn't anything that should exist at 85 meters in the North Atlantic. Two shapes, faint, distant, like eyes opening in the abyss. Then the winch accelerated and they were gone, swallowed by the dark. None of us said a word until we hit the surface. Chapter 2. The Thing Below. Crew hands unlatched our helmets the moment we reached the platform. Cold air hit my face like a slap, and I sucked it in like I'd been holding my breath for hours. Mika stumbled getting out of the basket. One of the deck crew caught her arm, and she flinched away from him like his touch burned. Jason leaned against a support rail, shaking, not from cold, from something deeper. Samantha approached fast. Her face was pale, composed, professional, but her eyes told a different story. What did you three see down there? We gave her 3 different answers. Jason said he saw a figure, a shape, something humanoid but wrong. I told her I wasn't sure. Could have been refraction, light playing tricks. I was lying, and we both knew it. Mika didn't say anything for a long moment. Then, quiet as a prayer, it was looking at us. Samantha's jaw worked like she was chewing on words she didn't want to swallow. That's not possible. Sonar reads clean. The damage to the cable doesn't match any known marine species. ROV footage from last month shows nothing unusual in that sector. Exactly, I said. She knew what I meant. The official explanations didn't fit, and something that doesn't fit the official explanations is usually something nobody wants to explain officially. Until we have data, she said carefully, this stays between us. You 3 need to eat, hydrate, and rest. Debrief in the morning. We nodded. None of us felt reassured. As I walked toward the crew quarters, I passed the monitoring station. One of the comms techs was replaying hydrophone logs, headphones pressed tight against his ears, brow furrowed. He looked up when I passed, shook his head. Nothing on the recordings, Redwood. Whatever you heard down there, the equipment didn't catch it. I nodded and kept walking. 20 minutes later, stripped out of my dive suit and standing alone in the changing room, I heard something. Faint, just at the edge of perception. A whisper drifting through the steel corridors. A shape of a word pulled tight through water and distance. Me, Ka. I froze. Listened. Nothing. Just the groan of the platform and the distant hum of generators. But I could have sworn, just for a second, that the sound came from inside my own head. Sleep didn't come. I lay in my bunk, watching the thin strip of fluorescent light above the door, counting every flicker like it was the only thing keeping reality anchored. The platform swayed in its cradle of water and steel, and I kept imagining I could feel something pressing up against the pylons from below, testing them, learning their shape. Every time I started to drift off, I heard it. Not loud, not clear, just a sound at the edge of hearing, like someone calling from the bottom of a swimming pool. Me, Ka. By morning, I'd convinced myself it was exhaustion, stress, nitrogen playing tricks on my brain despite the controlled ascent. That's what professionals do. We explain things until they stop scaring us, until we can do our jobs again. At 0700, Samantha called us back to the dive bay. Her eyes were red-rimmed. She hadn't slept either. Engineering reviewed the camera feeds, she said, arms crossed tight. Structural team signed off on your patchwork. Good job. Jason gave a mock salute that didn't reach his eyes. So we're done, right? Pack it up, go home. Forget the part where the Atlantic Ocean tried to talk to us? We're not done. She tapped the console and brought up a new schematic. A repaired section of cable, now surrounded by a translucent ring of data points. Secondary inspection on the stabilizers, power fluctuation on the feed, probably just settling, but we need visual confirmation before we certify the line. You want us to go back down there? Jason's voice was flat, not quite a question. I want to make sure the thing keeping this entire platform powered doesn't fail and kill everyone aboard. Yes, I want you to go back down there. Mika shifted her weight, helmet cradled against her ribs like a shield. Sam, about what we saw yesterday. Samantha cut her off. I logged everything you reported. HQ flagged it as visual anomaly due to stress and low visibility. Until we have hard evidence, that's the official position. Anomaly, Jason repeated. That thing had arms, Sam. It had a shape. And sonar had nothing. Cameras had nothing. Hydrophones had nothing. She let that hang in the air. I'm not calling you liars. But I'm also not filing a report that says Cthulhu lives in the North Atlantic and damaged our infrastructure. Nobody laughed at the joke. Maybe because it didn't feel like one. Same conditions? I asked. Worse, she admitted. Thermoclines dropped another few degrees. Currents up. Visibility's holding steady at garbage. Technical term. Navy approved. She almost smiled, almost. Listen, she said, voice softer now. I don't send anyone down if I think they're not coming back. You stay tight. You stick to procedure. You don't investigate anything that doesn't concern the cable. We're in and out. 30 minutes. Understood? We understood. But understanding and believing are different things. The second dive felt wrong from the moment we hit the water. Waves hammered the platform legs hard enough to make the deck vibrate. Rain came in sideways, cold and sharp, blurring the line between ocean and sky until everything was just gray. The basket swung over the edge, and I found myself gripping the rail so hard my fingers ached inside my gloves. We dropped. The layers passed like chapters in a book, getting steadily darker. Green-gray gave way to blue-black, then to pure absence of light. The cold wrapped around us tighter this time, more personal, like it remembered us from before. Depth 60, Samantha reported. Current stable. No anomalies. That word again. At 80 meters, we stepped off the basket and began our swim. The water felt different. I know that's not scientific. Same salinity, same pressure, same temperature to within a fraction of a degree, but it moved wrong around us, dragged at our limbs, resisted our forward motion like something thick and reluctant. We followed the guideline toward the cable, 3 helmet lights cutting through suspended particulate, 3 divers trying very hard to look professional while their hearts hammered against their ribs. Anyone else feel? Jason started. The scream cut him off. Not a whisper this time, not a half-syllable dragged through distance. A scream. Muffled by water and pressure, but unmistakably human in shape. It hit us in the chest first, a vibration that rattled through our bones. Then in the ears, a sound like someone drowning in slow motion. Jesus. Jason flinched so hard his tether went taut. Surface, did you catch that? I barked into comms. Negative. Samantha came back immediately. Hydrophones show normal ambient. What did you hear? A scream. Mika's voice was shaking, like someone screaming through a metal pipe. Underwater, inside our heads. Another wave of sound rolled through the black, lower this time, a moan stretched into something almost melodic. The pitch shifted in ways that whale song never does, too sharp, too deliberate, like someone learning how to use a voice they'd forgotten they had. And embedded in that resonance, shaped like words. Heelp, USSS. Sam, Jason's voice cracked. If you tell me you didn't get that. The instruments are clean." Her voice was strained now. Whatever professional composure she'd been holding was starting to crack. "Whatever you're hearing, the system isn't." "Then the system is wrong," Mika whispered. The cable looked intact when we reached it. Clamps secured, stabilizers solid, no new damage, no signs of stress. I ran my light across the repaired section, checking every connection, looking for any excuse to call this dive successful and get the hell back to the surface. "Structurally sound," I reported. "No degradation." "Copy that," Samantha said. "Take a perimeter sweep and log video, then you're coming up." We fanned out, careful, slow, not extending our tether gaps beyond standard distance. Jason moved left, bubbles streaming upward. Mika drifted right, just past the edge of my primary light. "Stabilizer 1, intact," Jason called. 2, intact, I added. 3, intact, Mika said. Her voice sounded strange, soft, almost peaceful. 4. She stopped. "Mika?" I turned, sweeping my light toward her position. "What do you see?" She was hovering motionless in the water, not swimming, not moving at all, just floating there with her chest rising and falling too fast. "Do you feel that?" she whispered. The temperature around me dropped, not on my instruments, on my skin, in my bones, like stepping from a heated room into a walk-in freezer without taking a single step. The darkness beyond our lights seemed to deepen, not just dark anymore, something worse, a sense of vertical drop you could feel in your spine, like standing at the edge of a cliff made of nothing. Then my light landed on something that wasn't cable, rock, or water. I thought it was shadow at first, a darker band beneath the already dark ocean floor, a stripe of black inside black. Then it moved, slowly, deliberately, rising. "Mason," Jason's voice was barely audible. "Tell me that's a trick of the light." My helmet beam traced the curve of its form, and the scale of it hit me like a physical blow. It was massive, at least 300 meters across from one visible edge to the other, maybe more. My brain kept trying to scale it down to something manageable, a whale, a submarine, a collapsing sediment shelf, anything but what it actually was. Tentacles uncoiled from its mass, drifting upward with the lazy patience of something that has never had to hurry in its entire existence. Not 2, not 8, dozens, some thick as industrial pipes. Others thin and delicate, almost graceful. They didn't move like squid arms. They moved like architecture, like living columns of muscle flexing and relaxing, each section pulsing to its own rhythm. "Surface," I said, voice steadier than I felt. "We have a large contact below us, very large, 300 to 400 meters across, multiple appendages, no clear head visible yet." Silence. Then Samantha, "Say again, Redwood. Scopes are clear. Depth shows flat sea floor under your position." "It's not flat," Jason snapped. "There's something under us the size of a goddamn building, and you're telling me—" "It's looking at us," Mika whispered. The eyes opened. Not dramatically, not with any fanfare. They just appeared. 2 vast orbs set far apart in the creature's bulk, faintly luminous, milky white like fog lit from within, no pupils, no focus points. But I felt their attention settle on us with surgical precision. Every primal alarm in my brain started screaming at once. Not predator in the way a shark triggers, something older, something that looked at the world on timescales we couldn't comprehend. Something that had been sleeping and now, inconvenienced, was simply awake. The sound came again. Not outside us this time. Inside. My chest vibrated, my teeth ached, my vision tunneled until all I could see were those 2 pale globes filling my helmet, filling everything, filling the entire universe. Help us. Not words, not really. An impression burned directly into my mind. Cold stone, crushing depths, an endless fall through water so dark it had forgotten light existed. "Abort," Samantha was screaming. "Abort now. Ascend. All divers ascend." Her voice sounded like it was coming from another planet. "I can't move," Jason gasped. "Look away," I forced out through clenched teeth. "Don't look at it. Break line of sight. Mika." "I don't want to," she whispered. Those 4 words froze my blood colder than the ocean ever could. "Mika, it's so beautiful." One of the thinner tentacles unfurled upward, moving toward us with the unhurried certainty of something that knew nothing could stop it if it chose to reach. I kicked hard against the water, fighting toward her position, every muscle screaming, every instinct telling me to swim the other direction, to leave her, to save myself. "Mika, back up, now." She startled like someone waking from a dream and kicked backward just as the tentacle brushed past where she'd been floating. I felt it. Not physically, nothing touched my suit, but something pressed against the inside of my skull, fingers made of pressure, flipping through my thoughts like pages in a book. My childhood in Nova Scotia, the first time I nearly drowned, every moment of fear I'd ever felt in the ocean. It found them, tasted them, and seemed to grow curious. I ripped my gaze away, forced myself to focus on my own hands, on the cable, on anything solid and known. "Jason, move! We're going up!" He snapped out of it and kicked toward the stage. The tentacle drifted after us for a few seconds, then coiled back toward the vast bulk below, like the effort of reaching for us wasn't worth the energy. Like we were interesting, but not important. Not yet. The eyes dimmed as the creature descended, that faint glow sinking back into the mass of shadow as it lowered itself into the deeper darkness below. Within 30 seconds, it was gone. The seafloor looked flat again. Empty. "Scope still shows nothing," Samantha said. Her voice was shaking. "No mass, no movement, no thermal signature." "Check your equipment," Jason snarled. "There's a mountain down there you're not picking up. Get to the stage. Now. That's an order." We didn't argue. The ascent felt endless. Every meter we rose, I expected something to wrap around my legs and drag me back down. My heartbeat was so loud in my helmet I could barely hear the comms chatter. My hand shook as I grabbed the stage rail and clipped my tether. I looked down one last time. Far below, further than our lights could reach. A faint suggestion of movement, the smallest edge of one milky glow. Still watching. Then the winch engaged and we rose toward the surface, toward air and light and the thin illusion of safety. Chapter 3. The Rising. They pulled us out of the water and nobody said a word. Crew hands worked our helmet latches in silence. The deck felt unsteady beneath my feet, and I couldn't tell if that was the platform swaying or just my legs refusing to work right. Samantha met us at the bay door. Her face was the color of old paper. Briefing room, now. We walked there, still dripping, still shaking, salt crusting on everything. She shut the door behind us and just stood there for a long moment, jaw working like she was trying to figure out which question to ask first. "Tell me exactly what you saw." So we told her. The size, the tentacles, the way they moved like architecture instead of animals, the eyes that opened without warning and looked at us, into us, through us. We described the sound, the pressure in our skulls, the phrases that burned across our minds without going through our ears. Samantha listened without interrupting. When we finished, she rubbed her temples like she was trying to massage away a migraine that would never go away. "Sonar shows nothing," she said quietly. "Thermal shows nothing. Cameras show 3 divers circling a cable and coming back up. That's it." "The logs are wrong," I said. "I know." The admission hung in the air between us. "I can file this as equipment malfunction combined with stress-induced group hallucination," she said. "That's what corporate will want." Or I can flag it higher and risk them shutting down the entire platform until an investigation is complete. You know what that does to contracts, to jobs, to the people who depend on this rig staying operational. Jason stared at her. We almost got our brains melted by something the size of a small island, and you're worried about schedules? I'm worried about all of it, her voice cracked, including keeping you three alive and employed. I'm not calling you liars, but I don't have evidence. I have testimony that contradicts every instrument on this platform. She took a breath, steadied herself. No more dives until I say so. Log everything you remember. Don't talk to the rest of the crew about specifics, and try to sleep. We'll figure out next steps in the morning. Nobody argued. But as we filed out of the briefing room, I caught something in Samantha's expression, something she wasn't saying. Recognition. Like she'd heard stories like ours before. I didn't ask about it. Maybe I should have. None of us slept. By midnight, half the platform seemed to be wandering the corridors like ghosts. Red-rimmed eyes, pale skin, the shuffling walk of people who couldn't find rest no matter how hard they tried. Andrei Kowalczyk, one of the deck operators, told me he kept dreaming about drowning, about falling through water so cold it burned, about something massive moving just below him, keeping pace, waiting. Connor from engineering said he woke up 3 times with a taste of seawater in his mouth. His bunk was bone dry, but his tongue was coated with salt. Jason wouldn't close his eyes at all. He sat in the mess hall drinking coffee until his hand shook, staring at nothing, refusing to explain why. But Mika was the one who scared me. I found her on the observation deck at 0200, just standing there in the dark, staring out at black water, completely still. Mika. She didn't turn around. "It's beautiful out there," she said. "Can you hear it? The singing?" I listened. Wind, waves, the groan of the platform settling on its pylons. Nothing else. "There's no singing," I said carefully. She turned to look at me then, and I felt something cold settle in my stomach. Her eyes looked different, not the color, the depth, like there was something behind them that hadn't been there before. "There's always singing," she said. "You just have to listen." I reached for her shoulder, but she stepped back before I could touch her. "I'm fine, Mason, really. Just couldn't sleep." She smiled. It didn't reach her eyes. The storm came without warning. One moment the sea was choppy but manageable, rough for November, but nothing we hadn't handled before. The next moment, a gale-force wind slammed the platform so hard the entire structure shuddered. Rain came sideways, cold as knives, turning the deck into a slick, trembling sheet of steel. Fog rolled in fast, too fast, moving with a purpose that fog shouldn't have. It wrapped around the platform legs like something trying to pull us down into the water. At 23:14, the power flickered. At 23:17, it died completely. Emergency generators kicked in a few seconds later, throwing dim red glow along the corridors. Everything looked wrong in that light. Familiar shapes turned sinister. Shadows pooled in corners like something alive. Then we heard it. A low, rising hum, metal vibrating at frequencies it wasn't meant to reach, water sloshing against the pylons in rhythms that didn't match the waves. And beneath all of that, building like thunder from the bottom of the ocean, a voice. Not screaming anymore. Calling. "Everyone to the central deck." Samantha's voice crackled over the emergency intercom. "All personnel report to central deck immediately. This is not a drill." We ran. Boots pounding on steel grating, red emergency lights strobing overhead, the whole platform shaking beneath us like something was pushing against it from below. When we burst through the doors onto the open deck, I understood why Samantha had called us here. The ocean was glowing. A sick, deep, bioluminescent green radiated up from somewhere far beneath the surface. It painted the undersides of the fog with shimmering light. made the waves look like they were made of something other than water. The platform shuddered again, harder this time. Something was rising, something massive. I grabbed a support rail as the deck tilted beneath us. 30 crew members clustered together, all of us staring at the impossible light below. Then the water bulged. Not from wind, not from current, from displacement. A swell rose upward as something enormous forced the sea aside, higher and higher, a dome of churning water that seemed to fight gravity itself. And then it broke the surface. It came up in sections. First, a crown of ridged plates, bone-colored, each one the size of a shipping container. They emerged from the water streaming torrents of foam, rising higher and higher until they blocked out what little sky we could see through the fog. Then the head, a mass of flesh and shadow and something that wasn't quite either, broader than the platform itself, rising on a neck that seemed to go down forever, disappearing into glowing water that now churned with agitation from its passage. The eyes came last. 2 vast, milky orbs the size of houses, luminous, empty, seeing everything. When they found us, 20 people screamed at once. Andre dropped to his knees, hands clamped over his ears. Connor turned and ran, made it 3 steps before his legs gave out. Someone was praying in Spanish, the words tumbling out too fast to follow. The creature kept rising. 50 meters above the water, 80, 100. Its tentacles broke the surface around it like a forest of flesh. They spread outward in all directions, some drifting lazily, others moving with clear purpose, each one longer than the platform, each one thick enough to crush steel. The fog swirled around its mass like smoke worshipping a god. And then it spoke, not through sound, through us. We remember you. The phrase slammed into my skull like a fist. I staggered, grabbed the rail, fought to keep my feet under me. The pressure built, crushing, intimate, like something reaching inside my head and rearranging the furniture. Images flashed behind my eyes. Ancient, wrong, ships with sails made of animal hide, cities drowned beneath rising seas, people screaming on beaches as something vast moved in the waters offshore. Memories that weren't mine, memories that were thousands of years old. You left us. I tasted blood. My nose was bleeding. Jason was on his knees beside me, hands pressed against his temples, sobbing. The tentacles moved. One of them, thinner than the others but still massive, curled up over the edge of the platform, testing, exploring, learning the shape of what we'd built. Come home. And I understood, in that moment, what it wanted. Not food, not destruction. Reunion. Something in its ancient mind remembered a time when humans lived closer to the sea, when we worshipped things in the deep water, when we gave offerings and received protection in return. It didn't understand that we'd forgotten. It didn't understand that we'd moved on. It just knew we'd left, and it wanted us back. The tentacle brushed against the deck railing. Steel groaned and bent like paper. Someone screamed, stumbling backward. Mika, no. Jason's voice cut through the chaos. I turned. Mika was walking toward the edge of the platform, steady, calm, her face serene in a way that had nothing to do with acceptance and everything to do with something else looking out through her eyes. I can hear them, she said. All of them, everyone it's ever called. They're still down there, waiting, singing. Mika, stop. I ran toward her, grabbed her arm, tried to pull her back. She looked at me with eyes that weren't hers anymore, pale, empty, deep as the ocean floor. It's beautiful, Mason. You'd understand if you could hear it. The thin tentacle moved toward her, toward us. I pulled harder, dragging her backward. She didn't resist, but she didn't help either. Like her body didn't care anymore, like she was already somewhere else. The tentacle reached. I threw myself sideways, taking Mika with me. We hit the deck hard, sliding across wet steel as the massive limbs swept through the space where we'd been standing. It caught Andre instead. The tentacle wrapped around his torso with terrible gentleness. He had time to look at me, eyes wide, mouth open in a scream that never came out. Then it lifted him. 30 feet, 40, 50. His body went rigid, convulsed. I could see his mouth moving, but the sounds that came out weren't human. Wet, gurgling syllables that might have been words in a language that existed before language existed. Blood ran from his ears, from his nose, from the corners of his eyes. His spine arched backward at an angle that no living spine should reach. Then he just stopped. The convulsions ended. The sounds ended. He hung there in the tentacle's grip, limp as a rag doll, and even from 50 feet below I could see that his eyes had changed. They were pale now, luminous, empty. The tentacle lowered him gently into the water. He didn't sink. He floated there for a moment, face up, staring at nothing. Then, slowly, horribly, he turned himself over and began to swim downward, toward the creature, toward the glow. Someone was screaming, maybe me. The creature regarded us for another long moment, those massive eyes sweeping across the platform like searchlights made of fog and hunger. Then it spoke again. More. A tentacle swept across the deck. People scattered, ran, dove for cover. Connor didn't move fast enough. It caught him by the legs and dragged him over the edge so fast he barely had time to scream. He hit the water and the glow swallowed him instantly. Harper was next. Daniel Harper, good guy, 43 years old, had a wife back in Street Johns, 2 kids in middle school. He was running toward the interior doors when a smaller tentacle, quick as a whip, wrapped around his ankle and yanked. He grabbed a support strut, held on. The tentacle pulled harder, and I could hear his shoulder pop out of its socket from 20 feet away. He screamed. Really screamed. The kind of sound that comes from somewhere deeper than your throat, the kind that tears your vocal cords on the way out. His fingers slipped. The tentacle pulled him across the deck, his body bouncing against steel and over the edge. The last thing I saw before he vanished beneath the glowing water was his face. His eyes had already started to change. The creature watched us for what felt like hours, probably only minutes. Then, slowly, impossibly, it began to sink. The massive head lowered, the tentacles coiled back toward its body. The bioluminescent glow dimmed, fading from green to pale yellow to nothing. The water closed over it like a grave filling with dirt. The fog swirled once, twice, then began to dissipate. And we were alone. 27 people left out of 30. Nobody moved. Nobody spoke. The silence was worse than the screaming. Then Mika started laughing. Soft, almost gentle, like she'd just heard a joke that none of us understood. "It'll come back," she said. "It always comes back. It's been waiting so long. It can wait a little longer." Her eyes were still wrong, pale at the edges, deep in a way that human eyes shouldn't be. I took a step toward her. She looked at me and smiled. "Don't worry, Mason. It likes you. It told me so." Then her eyes rolled back in her head and she collapsed onto the deck. The emergency evacuation started at dawn. Helicopters came as soon as the weather cleared, 3 of them, pulling people off the platform, 2 and 3 at a time. Nobody argued. Nobody wanted to stay. I should have been on the first flight out. Instead, I found myself standing at the edge of the deck, staring down at calm, empty water that looked like nothing had ever disturbed it. Samantha found me there. "Chopper's waiting," she said. I didn't move. "Mason, you knew," I said quietly. "Before any of this, you knew something was down there." She was quiet for a long time. "I suspected," she said finally. 20 years ago. Different platform, different crew, same kind of incident." And you never reported it? I reported it. Her voice was bitter. Filed every form. Gave every statement. You know what happened? I waited. They sealed the records. Transferred everyone involved. Told us we'd imagined it. Stress and nitrogen, narcosis and group hysteria. She laughed, but there was no humor in it. Some of the crew, they never stopped hearing it. The singing. They're still in facilities somewhere, talking to things nobody else can see. And you came back. I told myself I had to know, had to understand. She looked out at the water. Now I wish I'd just let myself forget. What about Mika? Medical evac. She's responsive, but Samantha shook her head. She keeps talking about going home, about the singing, about how beautiful it is down there. I thought about the way she'd walk toward the edge, the peace on her face, the certainty. Will she recover? I don't know. Samantha's voice was very quiet. The ones from before, some of them got better. Mostly, the others. She didn't finish. She didn't need to. What do we tell people? I asked. The truth, or as much of it as we can make sound reasonable. She pulled a cigarette from her pocket, lit it with shaking hands. Equipment malfunction, structural stress from the storm. 3 crew members lost to sea, tragic accident, ongoing investigation. And the thing? What thing? She took a long drag. Sonar doesn't show anything. Cameras don't show anything. As far as the official record is concerned, there's nothing down there but water and rock. But we know. Yeah, she looked at me with eyes that had seen too much. We know, and we'll spend the rest of our lives trying to forget, and we won't. And eventually, someone else will go down there, and they'll see it too, and the cycle will start all over again. You could warn them. I could, she smiled, but it was broken. Who's going to believe me? Chapter 4. The silence after. The helicopter took me to Street John's. From there, a company car to a company hotel. A company doctor who asked the same questions 6 different ways and wrote things in a notebook he wouldn't let me see. A company psychologist who used words like traumatic dissociation and shared delusion and recommended leave of absence. I told them what I saw. At first, anyway. The creature, the size of it, the way it rose from the water like a god reclaiming territory it had never really left, the tentacles that moved like architecture, the eyes that looked through us instead of at us. They listened, they nodded, they wrote things down. Then they showed me the footage. The official footage from the platform cameras, time-stamped and certified, and completely, utterly wrong. 3 divers circling a repaired cable, ascending without incident, a storm rolling in over the platform, some equipment damage, 3 crew members lost overboard in the rough weather. That's all it showed. No creature, no tentacles, no glowing water, no bodies being lifted and transformed and given back to the sea. The instruments don't lie, the company man said. He was wearing a nice suit and had the kind of smile that made you want to check your wallet. We understand you've been through a traumatic experience. Grief does strange things to memory. I know what I saw. Of course you do. He slid a document across the table. This is a non-disclosure agreement regarding the incident. Standard procedure. We'll also be offering a generous severance package and full coverage for any mental health support you might need going forward. I stared at him. You're paying me to shut up. We are compensating you for your service and supporting your recovery. The smile never wavered. Same thing, really. I signed the papers because what else was I going to do? Nobody was going to believe me anyway. Jason came to see me 3 days later. He looked 10 years older, dark circles under his eyes like bruises, hands that couldn't stop shaking no matter how much he tried to hide them in his pockets. You remember, I said. He shook his head, not like he was disagreeing, like he was trying to shake something loose. Pieces, he said. Flashes. I remember being scared. I remember the water glowing. But when I try to focus on it, try to really see what happened, he trailed off. It's like looking at something through fogged glass. The shapes are there, but the details just slide away. That's not how I remember it. I know. He looked at me with something close to envy. Doc says your memory's unusually persistent, that most trauma survivors experience some kind of protective amnesia. Your brain didn't do that. Lucky me. Yeah, he tried to smile and couldn't quite manage it. I keep having dreams, though, about drowning, about something huge moving in the dark, about voices calling from underwater. He shuddered. I wake up with the taste of salt in my mouth. Mika? His face went very still. She's in a facility in Halifax. They won't let anyone see her. He swallowed. Sam says she's talking now, coherent sentences, but the things she's saying... What things? She keeps asking to go home. Jason's voice dropped. But she doesn't mean Halifax. She doesn't mean anywhere on land. I didn't say anything. There wasn't anything to say. I'm going back to Corner Brook, he said finally. My daughter. I want to see her grow up. I want to watch her become a marine biologist like she keeps saying. He laughed, but it was hollow. I don't think I'll let her study deep water, though. I'll push her toward tide pools, shore ecosystems, things that stay where you can see them. That's probably wise. He stood up, hesitated at the door. Mason, do you think it's still down there? I know it is. And it's going to come back. It wasn't a question, so I didn't answer it. After Jason left, I spent a lot of time staring at walls. The company set me up in an apartment. Nice place, good view of the harbor, the kind of view that would have comforted me once. Now I couldn't look at the water without seeing that glow rising from beneath, without imagining massive eyes opening in the dark. I started drinking more than I should, sleeping less than I needed to. I'd wake up in the middle of the night convinced I could hear something calling from outside my window. Mika. Then I'd remember that Mika was in a facility somewhere, talking to doctors about beautiful music she could hear from beneath the waves. And I'd wonder if the voice was calling for her, or warning me. 3 weeks after the incident, I went to see Samantha. She'd taken a job with a different company, shore-based now, something in logistics that kept her far away from open water. We met at a coffee shop. She looked better than I expected, calmer, like she'd made peace with something. You're the only one who remembers clearly, she said, not a question. Seems like it. Jason's already starting to forget. The other survivors, same thing. Give it 6 months and they'll convince themselves it was just a bad storm and some unlucky accidents. She stirred her coffee slowly. The mind protects itself. Mine didn't. No, she studied me over the rim of her cup. You're one of the other kind. Other kind? The ones who can't forget. She set the cup down. I've met a few over the years, people who saw things that should have broken their minds, but instead their minds just held on, like a camera that won't stop recording even after the film runs out. Is that supposed to be comforting? No, she smiled sadly. It's supposed to be honest. What happened to the ones you met before? The ones who couldn't forget? She was quiet for a long time. Some of them learned to live with it, built new lives, found ways to carry what they'd seen without letting it crush them. She paused. Others? They went looking for answers, went back to the places where they'd seen things, tried to understand. Her voice dropped. Most of them didn't come back. And the ones who did? They weren't the same people anymore. She met my eyes. Don't go looking for it, Mason. Whatever that thing is, whatever it wants, you won't find answers that make you feel better. You'll just find more questions. And eventually, one of those questions will pull you under and you won't come back up. I told her I understood. I told her I wouldn't go looking. I'm not sure if I was lying. 6 months passed. I tried to live a normal life. Got a job on a fishing boat, then quit when the dreams got too bad. Tried working at a marine supply store, but the smell of salt and rope made me nauseous. Ended up driving trucks. Inland routes, far from the ocean. The dreams never stopped. Every night I saw it rising. Every night I felt those eyes finding me, looking through me, recognizing me. Come home. The phrase had burned itself into my brain. I heard it when I was driving, when I was eating, when I was trying to have conversations with normal people about normal things. Sometimes I'd catch myself standing in front of maps, tracing the coastline of Newfoundland with my finger, calculating distances to the spot where the Hibernia platform sat above 300 meters of black water. I told myself I was just remembering. I told myself I wasn't planning anything. I told myself a lot of things. Then the news report came. Another platform incident, different company, different location, but the same general area of the North Atlantic. 3 workers missing, equipment malfunction, unexplained damage to subsea infrastructure. I watched the report in a truck stop diner, coffee going cold in my hands, and I knew. It was waking up more often now, calling louder, finding more voices to add to its choir. That night, I dreamed of Mika. She was floating in water so deep the pressure should have crushed her, but she was smiling, serene, her eyes were pale and luminous, and when she opened her mouth, the sounds that came out weren't words. They were singing. Harmonies that no human throat should be able to produce. Melodies that twisted through frequencies we don't have names for. And beneath her, vast and patient and ancient beyond comprehension, something moved. We remember you, Mason. I woke up screaming. But the worst part wasn't the dream. The worst part was that for just a second, before I fully woke up, before my conscious mind reasserted control, I wanted to answer. I still have the documents from the company settlement, the NDA I signed, the severance agreement, the medical evaluation that says I suffered from acute psychological distress exacerbated by environmental factors. Nothing in those documents mentions what we actually saw. Nothing in the official record says anything about a creature the size of a city block rising from the North Atlantic to claim 3 human beings as its own. According to the world, it never happened. According to every instrument, every camera, every piece of equipment that was supposed to record the truth, there's nothing down there but water and rock and the normal, mindless life of the deep ocean. But I know. Jason's memory might have faded. The other survivors might have convinced themselves it was all just trauma and bad weather and terrible coincidence. I remember everything. The size of it, the sound of its voice in my skull, the way Andre's body changed as the tentacle held him, the look in Mika's eyes before she collapsed. I remember, and I can't forget. And sometimes, late at night, when I'm driving through some empty stretch of highway far from any coast, I hear something, faint, distant, impossible, a whisper carried on wind that doesn't exist. Come home. And I wonder if the thing beneath the water isn't just calling to the people who've seen it. I wonder if it's calling to all of us. Everyone who ever looked at the ocean and felt something looking back. Everyone who ever stood on a beach and sensed, just for a moment, that the water wasn't empty. I wonder if it's been calling since before we had ears to hear it. Waiting. Patient. Hungry. And I wonder how much longer the world can pretend it isn't there before the world doesn't have a choice anymore. Some nights, I still see those eyes in my dreams. Pale, luminous, ancient. Watching. Always watching. And somewhere, in a facility in Halifax, Mika is still talking about the singing, still asking to go home. I called the facility once, pretended to be a relative. The nurse who answered said Mika was doing much better. She was calm now, peaceful. She'd stopped trying to leave, but she spent all day, every day, staring out her window, toward the east, toward the ocean, smiling. I don't know why I'm writing this down. Maybe because I need someone else to know. Maybe because I need proof that I'm not crazy. Maybe because I'm hoping that someday someone will read this And believe me. Or maybe I'm just trying to hold on to the truth before the world convinces me to let it go. They say the ocean covers 70% of the Earth's surface. They say we've explored less than 5% of it. They say we know more about the surface of the moon than we know about what lives in our own deep water. I used to think that was exciting, a frontier waiting to be discovered, mysteries waiting to be solved. Now I think maybe the ocean hasn't been explored because something down there doesn't want us to explore it. Something that's been waiting, something that remembers, something that knows we'll come back eventually. Because we always do. And when we do, it'll be there, patient, hungry, ready to welcome us home. Folklore note: the ocean has always held terrors. Before humans had names for fear, we had stories about what lived beneath the waves: the Kraken of Norse mythology, the Cetus of Greek legend, Leviathan from Hebrew texts. Every culture that touched the sea developed tales of vast creatures dwelling in the deep places where light never reaches. Scientists call this thalassophobia, the primal fear of deep water. They say it's evolutionary. A survival instinct left over from when our ancestors were small and vulnerable and the ocean was full of things that could eat them without effort. But here's the thing about primal fears. They don't come from nowhere. Whale carcasses sometimes wash ashore bearing wounds from creatures we've never identified. Deep-sea cameras occasionally capture shadows moving at the edge of their range that don't match any known species. Submersibles have recorded sounds from the ocean floor that marine biologists can't explain. The bloop, the Julia, the upsweep, names given to underwater noises so loud they were detected across entire oceans, emanating from sources that have never been found. In 1997, NOAA hydrophones picked up an ultra-low frequency sound from the South Pacific that remains unexplained to this day. The noise was consistent with the vocalizations of a living creature several times larger than the blue whale. Official explanations point to ice calving, ice quakes, geological events. But the old sailors had different theories. They said the sea has moods, personalities, hungers. They said some waters are deeper than depth can measure. They said things sleep in the trenches that have been sleeping since before life crawled onto land. And they said those things dream. And sometimes, when the conditions are right and the moon is in its proper phase and the currents align in ways they haven't aligned for centuries, those things wake up and remember and call. The Hibernia platform is still operating today. The company says the incident was fully investigated. Equipment has been upgraded. Safety protocols have been enhanced. They don't talk about what their instruments failed to record. They don't talk about the 3 crew members whose bodies were never found. And they definitely don't talk about the diver currently institutionalized in Halifax who spends her days staring at the ocean, humming melodies that no one taught her, waiting for something only she can hear. Listen carefully, children of the shore. The next time you stand at the water's edge and feel that shiver run down your spine, the next time you look out at the horizon and see something shift just beneath the surface, the next time the ocean goes quiet in a way that feels wrong, trust that feeling, because the deep remembers, and it's very, very patient. Well, boys and ghouls, that wraps up another terrorific tale from the vault. Poor Mason did all he could do, just wasn't enough. Tried to warn everyone, tried to make them believe, but who's going to trust a man who swears he saw something the cameras didn't catch, something the instruments didn't record? Poor guy gets to remember everything while everyone else just forgets. Gets to spend the rest of his life knowing there's something the size of a city down there, calling, waiting, hungry, and nobody believes him. And Mika? She's down there too now, in her own way, still singing, still smiling, still waiting to go home, just how we love it. If this story crawled under your skin the right way, hit that subscribe button. New creature features drop every single day, and trust me, tomorrow's even nastier. Leave a like if you're going to think twice before looking at deep water again, and drop a comment. Where are you watching from tonight? What's the deepest water you've ever been in? Did you feel something looking back at you? I'm always hunting for the next nightmare. Remember, the ocean covers 70% of the Earth. We've explored less than 5%, and some things down there have been waiting a very, very long time for us to come home. Until next time, kiddies, keep your fires burning and your eyes on the horizon. This has been your Late Night Creature Feature. I'm Mr. Wendigo, and the deep remembers